On the day of marrying Henry, I realized that I had mistaken the target of my pursuit. At this moment, he was being pressed down in the dressing room by his childhood sweetheart. Brother, run away from the wedding with me. Okay? Henry's eyes were dark, pinching her waist. He said with red eyes, beg me. Outside the dressing room, the system's voice was mournful. Host, we targeted the wrong person. Your target is his good brother. Ian, there is only 1 hour left for the task. So, before Henry ran away from the wedding, I ran away first. Then I forcibly kissed his brother next door. Brother, if I say that I like you and I am just a friend with your brother, do you believe me? Ian wiped the blood from his lips and sneered. Little green tea. Are you addicted to fishing? I had mistaken the target of my pursuit. When I learned about this, I was about to marry Henry. In the dressing room, the girl was wearing my wedding dress and asked copiously, Henry, do I look good in her wedding dress? Henry's voice was hoarse. Ugly. Ugly? Then why do you still like it so much? Her voice was shattered. Today, Henry and I are getting married. When his childhood sweetheart Yvonne heard the news, she rushed back from abroad overnight. Nestling in Henry's arms, she planned to stop the wedding. I felt extremely cold. Once the wedding was stopped, I would be eliminated by the system due to task failure. Inside the door, Yvonne was panting and showing off. You see, you still love me. Henry had a gloomy face, but his actions didn't stop. Don't be so full of yourself. Yvonne cried out. Brother, don't marry that licking dog. Run away from the wedding with me. Okay? Beg me. Please. Henry kissed her. I was so heartbroken that I couldn't breathe. I was just about to push the door and enter. The system that had been pretending to be dead for a long time suddenly screamed. It gave me a start. The system's voice was terrified. Host, hold back your tears. You licked the wrong person. The task is about to end. I was struck by lightning. Licked the wrong person? The system said with tears. Wrong. Your target is Henry's good brother Ian. There is only 1 hour left for the task. My legs trembled and my vision darkened. Almost fainting. In the past 6 months, I have been playing the role of a licking dog diligently, bearing hardships and standing by at any time, just to make Henry marry me. And now you tell me I licked the wrong person? In just 1 hour. Where can I find Ian to get married? It's better to just wait for death. Then what should I do? I was completely hopeless. The system was weak. Kissing can extend the task time. The higher the degree of intimacy, the longer the extension time. It is recommended to forcibly kiss directly. I immediately regained my vitality and, full of killing intent, lifted my skirt. Where should I kiss? At the wedding scene. A few minutes later, there were a pair of newlyweds who seemed in harmony but were actually at odds at the wedding scene. Tears were swirling in my eyes. After all, if I couldn't kiss Ian, I would die. Henry was still indifferent to me. Keon, you are about to marry me soon. Are you looking forward to it? He seemed to be looking forward to the good show of me crying bitterly when I broke off the engagement later. But I didn't have the mood to pay attention to him, because the nervous voice of the system filled my mind. Host, Ian is about to arrive at the door. Count down 10, 9, 8. I slowly lifted my skirt, bent my body slightly, and prepared to start running. The master of ceremonies asked passionately, May I ask, are the two newlyweds willing to grow old together and stay together forever? Yvonne was sitting in the audience, her face flushed with excitement. Henry picked up the microphone and the corner of his mouth curved slightly. I don't host. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, I had a ferocious expression and jumped up. Like a cannonball, I shot out of the auditorium at an extremely fast speed. Everyone's mouths opened wide. Only the sound of the door being slammed open was heard. I grabbed a man and disappeared in the white light. leaving Henry and the master of ceremonies standing on the stage, stunned. A long time later. Damn. The master of ceremonies' voice changed pitch and asked Henry uncertainly. The bride. Just now. Ran away from the wedding? Right? In the old storage room. Ian leaned against the wall lazily. His clothes were in disarray. His whole body exuded a beauty after being abused. Had enough kissing? Ian's tone was lazy and without much enthusiasm. As if being eaten tofu for no reason. It didn't matter to him. The system was panting. Huff. The forcible kiss is effective. Congratulations. Host. You have 1/2 an hour of survival time. If you could sleep with him, it would be even better. It can extend for several days at a time. Only 1/2 an hour was extended after kissing him. Truly worthy of Ian. Known for being extremely difficult to deal with. As the youngest heir of the Gu family, Ian has a perverse and gloomy temperament. Others avoid him when they see him. Who dares to fish for him? The system had a fierce expression, and gritted its teeth and produced a crazy big shot always wants to censor me high. Host. Trust me. Follow the plot, and you will definitely win. A few minutes later. I was wearing a red strapless high-slit dress and blushing as I sat on Ian's lap. The fair legs and Ian's black suit pants formed a sharp contrast. The system whispered. This book is quite perverted. Host. You have had a hard time. Not hard work, but a hard life. I twisted my thigh and had tears in my eyes. Brother. If I say that I like you and I am just a friend with your brother, do you believe me? The bright spring sunlight shone on my fair skin. Ian narrowed his eyes and his eyes gradually darkened. Little green tea. Are you addicted to fishing? The cool voice was so seductive that it made people's legs weak. Suddenly, Henry's gloomy voice came from outside the window. Search for me. Find Cynthia and break her legs. Ian lowered his head and looked at the wedding dress on me that had been torn into a mess. With a mocking curl of his lips. Little green tea. Come here. The system suddenly reminded me. Host. You can't be seen having an affair by Henry. It will deduct survival time. I was startled and was about to get up and lock the door. Suddenly, Ian grabbed my waist and pulled me closer. The refreshing mint fragrance quickly filled my mind. He was so clean. Spotless. Ian's hand ran along my waistline and gave a gentle twist. I couldn't help but let out a gasp. Immediately after, the window was opened. The bright spring sunlight shone in. The clothes hanger blocked Ian's upper body. Henry saw me who didn't have time to hide my cheeks flushed. Straddling a pair of long legs and black suit pants. Looking panicked. The system let out a wail. Survival time is about to be cleared. Count down 10. 9. Host. Don't kiss anymore. Sleep with him. Sleeping with him is faster. I hurriedly went and drew Ian's belt. In the next second, Henry's roar resounded throughout the yard. Cynthia. Stop. If I let you and this bastard man walk out unharmed today, I'll take your surname. Ian was extremely calm and touched my head. Put your hands behind your back. Huh? There seemed to be a lot of relatives and friends outside the window. Ian took off his tie and tied up my wrist. Showing a gentle smile. Didn't you want to sleep with me? Without strength. How can you sleep with me in front of others? No. Did he call all these people? The hard-won survival time was rapidly decreasing. I was tied up by his hands and was so anxious that tears came out. Untie me. Otherwise I can't sleep with you. Ian's composed look instantly disappeared. He raised an eyebrow slightly and his lips curved coldly. Really want to sleep? Could it be fake? Under the threat of death. I was so weak that I trembled and fell into Ian's arms. Crying bitterly. This was probably the first time Ian had seen someone cry in a hurry because they couldn't sleep with him. More and more people gathered outside to watch the excitement. The black coat covered me from head to toe before everyone arrived. The countdown stopped. Ian forced a smile and said, "Why are you like having a terminal illness? Cynthia? You are so useless." Before Henry was about to break in, Ian unpicked me up and left through the layers of clothes racks at the back door and got into his car. In the car, I was still in shock and crying convulsively. Ian had a gloomy face and said, "What are you crying for? Just because you can't sleep with me?" I nodded vigorously and stuck to him like an octopus, silently counting the slowly increasing survival time. Ian had a cold and disgusted expression and looked out the window, not knowing what he was thinking. The car slowly drove into the villa area. "Get out." Ian drove me away. "Aren't you getting out? I still have work." "How could that be?" The system screamed. "Host. Kiss enough first. I don't want to die." I carefully leaned over. "Can I have a kiss?" Ian stared at my wet eyelashes in silence for a long time. Then he pinched my chin and indulged me in kissing him wantonly. His lips were very cool. The rough fingertips gently touched my neck, bringing an indescribable throb. So comfortable. Suddenly, someone knocked on the car window. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Henry's big face pressed against the window and screamed in fright, almost having a heart attack. "You are so stupid, host. Pay attention not to violate the green tea persona." I covered my mouth and quickly squatted under Ian's legs, looking up at him pleadingly. Fortunately, Henry couldn't see inside the car, only to see him with a gloomy face, knocking and saying, "Dude, do me a favor." Ian glanced down at me, pressed my head down. "Lower a bit more. Then he can't see you." Due to this indescribable position, the mint smell on Ian became even stronger. The car window was lowered a crack. Ian asked coldly, "What's the matter?" "Cynthia ran away from the wedding." Ian raised his eyebrows slightly, his expression subtle. "Oh. Then she is really reckless." Henry was irritably smoking. "Do me a favor." A man was holding her and left through the back door. "I remember your people were at the back door. They must have seen. Help me find out who that person is. I'll make him have no descendants." As I tensed up, I accidentally bumped my head on a certain part. Ian let out a hiss and looked down at me with narrowed eyes. "Darling, do you also want me to have no descendants?" I covered my mouth and didn't dare to make a sound. But Henry took a look through the gap and seemed to be stunned. "Where did you get this little girl?" "Good flexibility. Just started dating. She likes to bite people." Henry narrowed his eyes, almost pushing his head in. "Such a young one. Don't introduce her to your brothers?" Saying that, he was about to open the car door. The driver immediately locked the door. Ian said with a smile, "She is timid and afraid of being scared. Next time." After saying that, under Henry's meaningful gaze, Ian raised the car window and lifted my face. He found that the lipstick had all been printed on his pants. He patiently wiped off the smudged lipstick for me. "What should I do? Your ex-husband is interested in you again. So, I have to hide you. Ian is a pervert." I was lying on Ian's big bed, looking at the ceiling with blank eyes. After this pervert locked me in the villa, he left. Instead, the secretary brought a bunch of daily necessities. Silk nightgowns and famous brand shoes and bags filled the cloakroom. The system watched the excitement without thinking it was a big deal. "Host. He is quite ceremonial when keeping someone. But is it money that I lack?" "What I lack is people." But Ian didn't know what he was thinking. He just dangled me like this, visible but untouchable. Seeing the survival time was about to run out, I was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. "Host. Otherwise jump out of the window and run. Ian is attending a banquet not far away. It's still in time to go there now." So I really ran. The security system of the villa went crazy and made noises. In the next second, my phone received a call from Ian. After answering, I only heard him laughing coldly and saying, "Baby, is this your sincerity? You'd better pray that I don't catch you." I hung up the phone irritably, staring at the digital display on top of my head with only 10 minutes left. I increased my speed. The banquet hall was bustling with people. I looked around in the crowd. As soon as I turned around, I was pulled by my hair and thrown against the wall. The pain spread from the back of my head to my tailbone. It hurt so much that I grimaced. Keon, where have you been these days? Henry didn't know when he appeared behind me. His face gloomy. I instantly held my breath and tensed up all over. Last time when he and Dian were both present, I was almost killed. I said softly, Henry, let me go first. Let go? So that you can be happy with that adulterer? He pulled my hair hard and said viciously, tell me obediently. Who is that man? So that I can teach him that not everyone can pick up trash. I almost forgot that Henry is a disgusting lunatic. When Yvonne ignored him, Henry treated me as a substitute and ordered me to lose weight desperately. No matter how tall I am, I have to lose weight to be as weak as Yvonne. When Yvonne said a few words to him, he thought my substitute was an eyesore and made me gain weight desperately. I must not be the same as her. After tossing and turning for half a year, I got stomach problems. My health has not been very good. System. Can I call him an asshole? The system said regretfully. Your persona is a little green tea. You can't. I was almost choked to the point of being unable to breathe. Yvonne suddenly appeared from nowhere. She covered her mouth in surprise and her eyes instantly turned red. Brother, why did you let her dirty hand touch you? Henry suddenly turned his head and saw Yvonne. Panic flashed in his eyes. Yee, it's not what you think, you liar. Yvonne's voice was filled with tears. Don't touch me. You have been touched by her. So dirty and dirty. Taking advantage of this time, I broke free from Henry and turned to run out of the corridor. Yvonne suddenly stuck out her foot and tripped me. I lost my balance, knocked over beer bottles and fell heavily to the ground. My palm was instantly pierced by glass shards. Yvonne kept crying. Henry hugged her and kicked me. Hey, you made my wife angry. Apologize to her. I gritted my teeth and stared at the countdown with only 10 minutes left. The desire to survive made me crawl forward desperately. Malice flashed in Yvonne's eyes. The sharp heel of her high heels was about to stab my hand. In desperation, I grabbed a piece of glass shard and stabbed it hard into her ankle. The piercing scream covered the noise. Suddenly, a cold prompt sounded in my ear. Attack. Deduct 5 minutes of survival time. It was the chief judge in charge of all systems. The adjudication result had absolute authority. The survival time on top of my head entered the countdown. The system exclaimed. Host. Find Dian quickly. I gritted my teeth and got up and pushed open the door and ran out. At a glance, I saw Dian slowly coming from a distance surrounded by people. Host. Led Dian to a place where Henry can't see. Sleep with him. That's what I thought too. I saw Dian say something to the people beside him, and then walked towards me. My face was pale and my heart was racing. I shuttled through the corridor looking for the best crime scene. Dian's lazy voice came from behind. Keon, don't tell me that you escaped just to make yourself covered in bruises. He had long legs. One step was equal to several of mine. He just followed leisurely like this. Like a beast letting its prey run away. The countdown in my ear was like a huge bell, hitting my fragile nerves. Seeing that I was running faster and faster, Dian's voice also cooled down. If you have the ability, run faster. If I catch you, you know the consequences. Until at a certain corner, I saw an open meeting room. The countdown on my head was also coming to an end. I suddenly turned around and pulled him in when he, and didn't have time to react. I knocked him down hard on the sofa and started kissing wildly. The time that was about to reach 0 began to increase slowly again. Dian's whole body stiffened. The cold and fierce look in his eyes gradually turned into confusion. His lips were occupied by me and he couldn't speak. His big palm slid across my back, pinched the collar, and gently lifted me away from him. His handsome face was covered with gloom. Cynthia. Stop. Don't talk. Let me kiss you. Like a starving ghost. I pounced back and bit and ravaged him recklessly. The refreshing breath with a rich aroma of wine, made people intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. But it wasn't enough to live. The time still wasn't enough to live. I was panting and dizzy. Grabbing Ian's tie, I said, "Brother, let's sleep. Right now." As it turns out, in the face of death, humans will completely lose their sanity. So much so that I didn't notice that there were actually people present here. And there were quite a few people. You let go of our chairman." A trembling voice came from behind. As I turned around, more than a dozen pairs of eyes were staring at my hand and eyeing Ian's belt. Their expressions were silent. Who can tell me where these middle-aged and elderly men came from? Ian suddenly laughed unkindly. "Congratulations. You just said in front of my board of directors that you want to sleep with me." Ian became the way he was after being ravaged again. There was my lipstick printed on his thin lips. His tie and shirt were wrinkled. His expression was listless. Just like a good man who had been bullied. The people on the board of directors felt even more distressed when they saw him. They all stood up angrily. With snot and tears. "How dare you sleep with him? He is in poor health. What if something happens to him?" Ian sneered. "Yes. Just now when she bumped into me like a calf. She almost took my life. This damn pervert." Started watching the excitement again. The emotions that I had been holding back for a long time suddenly couldn't be controlled. Facing the pointing of the people around me, I buried my head in Ian's arms. Looking up again, my eyes were red. "Brother, is it wrong for me to love you so much? Why do you let them humiliate me like this?" Ian's expression froze. His handsome features gradually became gloomy. "Get out." I was cursing in my heart. Just as I was about to get up, Ian put his arm around my waist. "I was talking about them. Get out." This group of people on the board of directors were like facing a great enemy. "No way. You have heart disease. You can't play too intensely. Get out." For the first time, a fierce and crazy look appeared on Ian's face. Everyone took 3 steps and looked back, leaving reluctantly. Before leaving, they also thoughtfully closed the door for us. But Ian actually has heart disease. No wonder he looks sickly and looks like he can't stand being tossed around. Ian raised his hand and wiped away the tears on my face. "Don't you like playing in front of others? Am I such a casual person? When did he get this wrong impression?" Perhaps my gaze was too resentful. Ian pursed his lips. "Forget it. I thought you were so brave." After saying that, his slender fingers began to unbutton his shirt one by one. The shiny collarbone gradually appeared, making people's blood rush. Seeing me staring at him blankly, Ian raised the corner of his mouth. "Didn't you want to sleep with me? After this opportunity, there won't be another." The skin under my fingertips suddenly became hot and burning. Ian was like a seductive male fox, looking at me lazily. The knuckles of his fingers were actually pinged under the bright light. I was a little shy. For a moment, I didn't know where to start. His finger pointed at my neck bone and slowly slipped into my loose hair and clenched it. A dim and dangerous lust appeared in his eyes. "Darling, come here." I was so weak all over. My speech was trembling. "Can you turn off the light?" "No. Just like this. Looking at you cry. It's exciting." An hour later, I walked out of the conference room with weak steps and blank eyes. My legs were so weak that I almost knelt on the ground. The system smacked its lips in satisfaction. "Host. This time there is half a month more. Ian is really amazing." Yes. I almost died. Ion, that beast in human clothing, came out following me. With his hands in his pockets, he slowly bent down and leaned close to my ear and said with a smile, "The back of the skirt is dirty. Remember to throw it away when you go back." I blushed deeply. Immediately after, a pair of hands appeared on my waist. Ian tied his coat around my waist and patted my butt. "Go, have fun." I stood still. Ion laughed again. "Why? Can't bear to part with me?" I took a deep breath and suddenly turned around. "Brother, Can you stay with me tonight? Ian's dark eyes stared at me for a long time. Suddenly he smiled brightly. Sure. I grabbed his tie, lowered my body, and gave him a light kiss like a dragonfly touching the water. Wait for me here. After saying that, I turned around and walked towards the banquet calmly. The system was puzzled. Host. What are you going to do? I showed a ferocious smile. Of course. I will cut those two assholes into pieces. With half a month of survival time. How can it be okay if I don't take half of it to take revenge? At the banquet, the atmosphere was just right. Yvonne was nestled in Henry's arms, sitting on the windowsill in the corner with tears streaming down her face. Her fair feet were held in Henry's hands. Don't do this. Don't do what? Henry smirked and stroked and played with it under the pretext of applying medicine. Just now you were jealous for me. Now what kind of pure little white flower are you pretending to be? Yvonne gave him a shy and annoyed look. That woman is fickle. So dirty. Be good. Later I will ask Ian to catch her and avenge you. Pierce her dirty hand and take off her clothes. Henry let out a low laugh. So naughty. Don't you just like me being so naughty? I calmly passed by the waiter and casually took the red wine bottle on the tray. Walked behind Henry. Raised my hand. With a clear and crisp sound, the red wine rolled down Henry's back of the head. The scarlet liquid splashed on Yvonne's fair and delicate face. Both of them were stunned. The chief judge appeared again. Serious warning. Host's harm. Deduct 5 minutes of survival time. A high-pitched alarm sounded in my mind. So it's only deducted 5 minutes. I wiped off the liquid on my face and picked up another bottle of wine. Everyone's attention was attracted by this side. Yvonne's face was pale. Cynthia. You don't smack. The second bottle of red wine bloomed on Yvonne's head. Serious warning. Survival time deducted by 10 hours. I was amused. Sorry. I am a master of fairness. You also need a bottle. Henry's face was gloomy and he was about to grab my hair. Unfortunately, I knew his habit too well. In the next moment, I directly lifted my knee and hit his lower body. Henry let out a muffled groan, covered his lower body and knelt down in pain. The system weakly begged. Host. Don't do it again. The consequences of violating the chief judge's order are very serious. Everyone stared at this scene in a daze and was scared stupid. Yvonne lost control of her emotions. Security guards. Defer her out. Don't let this dirty woman stay in the same place as us. I expressionlessly grabbed her hair and dragged her to the long table. Pressed her face into the cake in front of everyone. Dee. Warning warning. Survival time deducted by 3 days. Yvonne loves mangosteens. Henry forced me to imitate her and eat 20 cat ties in 1 day. Now I feel sick when I see them. I lifted Yvonne's head and pressed it into the mangosteens next to it. The beverage bucket. And the pile of bread. The alarms in my mind rang one after another. Deduct for deduct 1 day deduct. Deduct. Deduct beep has crashed after being wronged for so long. It suddenly vented. Henry staggered and got up, grabbed me and threw me hard into the cake. The sharp fork grazed the corner of my eye. There was a blood stain. Henry hugged the constantly trembling Yvonne. Cynthia. If you dare to touch her, I will kill you. The countdown in my mind suddenly turned into a dangerous red, announcing that my survival time was running out. I should go find Ian. But at this moment, I didn't want to move anymore. Wiping away my tears, I was seriously thinking about whether it was better to be alive or to die together with Henry and Yvonne. Ding dong. The system came back online. Detected that the target of the strategy has increased. Survival time is added by 5 days. 10 days. Add beep has crashed. The red turned into a healthy green. I swayed and supported the table and got up. I looked at Ian, who was leaning against the door outside the crowd and had watched a good show. What kind of wind was he on again? Looking at me in such a mess. He started to like me? Ian lazily walked through the crowd. The people around automatically gave way. Henry hugged Yvonne and looked at Ian. Brother, this is your place. So help me kill someone. I want to see this woman being played to pieces. You set the conditions. Ian glanced at him. Then it depends on who between you and her offers a higher price. Henry looked at me gloomily, as if looking at a disgusting maggot. Half of my company's shares. Is it enough? I felt extremely cold. After all, Ian is still a businessman. The system is crashed. I can't see how much Ian has for me. Probably not very high. Ian raised his eyebrows slightly and seemed very interested. Then, he walked up to me and asked with a smile, "How much do you offer?" I didn't say a word and didn't even look at him. I have nothing now. Only a rotten life. But if he dares to kill me, I will take him with me. Only to see Ian bend down, lean close to my ear and say with a smile, "Kiss me obediently. I will let Henry be played to pieces." Huh? My brain crashed and I looked up blankly. What? Ian's eyes told me that he was really looking forward to my kiss. His black pupils reflected my face splashed with dirt. At this moment, I suddenly understood Ian's perverse taste. It turns out that he doesn't like little white flowers. He likes bad women. I curved my lips and smiled. My eyes bright. Okay. After saying that, in Henry's furious gaze, I stood on tiptoe and gently kissed Ian's lips. This time, for some reason, there was no sound of the system deducting survival time. I put my arms around Ian's neck and kissed wantonly, until the air in my lungs was squeezed dry. Henry's expression was blank. You. Ian wiped his lips with lingering interest. What? I kissed my wife. Do you have the right to interfere? Henry seemed to suddenly think of something. His face turned into the color of pig liver. It was you that day. Ian. Brothers are like hands and feet. Ian laughed, put his arms around me and softly uttered a few words. Fuck you. Henry's face was ashen. He pushed Yvonne forward. Brother. I was wrong. It was all her idea. Yvonne let out a scream and fainted. On that day, Yvonne was carried out. In a room at the banquet. The man's screams lingered for a long time. The next day, I was woken up by the system. As soon as I opened my eyes, I heard bad news. Host. The chief judge has modified the rules. What rules? Getting married is not considered a successful strategy. It must also meet his at the same time. That is to say marriage and count. I let out a long breath. Hey. What is this? We are so ambiguous. How could it be low? My words got stuck in my throat. The system showed Ian's judgment. I sat up abruptly and said angrily, "Despicable villain." The system suddenly changed its tone. However, because you made a big scene just now, the chief judge made a compromise. Kissing Ian intimately in front of Henry will not clear the survival time. The current survival time is half an hour left. Host. Come on. Recently, there are rumors outside that Ian has kept a canary. Spoiled so much that she doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Often rushed in front of everyone and forcibly kissed Ian. After kissing, she left, leaving Ian alone to clean up the mess with a gloomy face. What's the use? No matter how shameless that woman is, President Gu is still willing to spoil her. I heard that it's about to piss off the old antiques of the Gu family. As soon as I walked to the entrance of Ian's company, I heard people talking about me. Looking closer, it turned out to be Yvonne. Before taking off the neck brace, she started spreading rumors. I walked straight past without blinking. The system scolded wildly. Bad woman. Yvonne's expression froze. A look of surprise flashed across her face. Looking at my back, she fell into deep thought. In the office, Ian was in a meeting. I pushed open the door of the conference room and very humbly greeted all the shareholders present. Sorry. I interrupted. Ian threw away his pen, pinched the bridge of his nose and resignedly got up. The meeting is adjourned. After saying that, he followed me to a side compartment. I couldn't wait to kiss. After my unremitting efforts, Ians has been brought up to the passing line by me. After being ravaged by me, he looked down at me lazily. Cynthia, do you have? I am sick. I said righteously. I have a love sickness that will die of heartache if I can't kiss you. Ian obviously didn't believe my nonsense. He twitched the corner of his mouth. Get out. As if thinking of something, I exclaimed and took out a blood pressure monitor and a defibrillator. Wait. I have learned some first aid knowledge these days. Ian was lack of interest. What's the use of learning that? I'm afraid something will happen to you. Don't you have heart disease? Ian put his hands in his pockets and walked to the office lazily. I was holding things and following behind in a hurry, mumbling, "You must live a long life." And suddenly stopped. I accidentally bumped into his back. Ian's expression was slightly cold. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "You want me to live longer?" "Yes. Which good person hopes that others will die soon?" I touched my nose. "Not to mention, I like you so much." The system prompted. Host. Ian's big asshole. No. Can he hear me scolding him? Seeing me staring at him in shock, Ian showed a lukewarm smile. Mind your own business. At the moment of turning around, the system prompted Ian's current. In the next few days, I was full of energy. I soaked in Ian's office every day to learn rescue knowledge. Ian looked at the dummy lying on the office floor and being pressed so hard that its chest was sunken by me. He sighed wearily. "Cynthia, come here." "What's wrong?" I was overjoyed. "Can I kiss you?" Ian's eyelid twitched. He grabbed my collar and dragged me over. "This disease I have is congenital." "I know. Heart diseases are divided into congenital and acquired. Yours is congenital. I remember there are 4 types in total. Tetralogy of Fallot." "Shut up." Ian impatiently interrupted me. "What I mean is, it's unnecessary." I blinked and stared at him seriously. "It's very necessary. Living one more day is earning one more day. What's good about living?" I was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, I loudly accused with righteous indignation. "You didn't say that last night. You said that living should be extremely happy. Said it's so enjoyable. So comfortable. So delightful. Want to next time?" Ian suddenly pinched my upper and lower lips like pinching a duck. His face completely darkened. "You shut up." I struggled and mumbled. Amusing Ian. He put a hat on my head, covering my eyes, and then pushed me away. "Go. Have fun. Don't shout blindly." The glow of the setting sun fell on Ian's tall and thin figure. Somewhat lonely. After a long time, the system dinged, prompting that Ian's had broken through. Victory was in sight. Ian's flat and lazy voice came. "A disease that is congenital. How long one lives depends on fate. Cynthia, if I die, you can take my money and live a carefree life." After hearing this sentence, my heart seemed to be pulled by something, tentatively probing half-jokingly. "That's illegal. Think of a legal way. Then there is only getting married." I was completely confused. I took off the hat and my heart started beating rapidly. "Do you agree or not?" Ian was bathed in the dusk, looking at me with his arms folded. "Try proposing. Then you'll know if I agree or not. Marriage and represent a successful strategy." I held my breath as if seeing the end of this game. After a brief silence, I still asked that sentence. "Ian, are you willing to marry me?" Ian's deep pupils reflected my appearance, and the fragmented golden light of the setting sun. For some reason, the lifelessness on him became even stronger. "Sure," Ian said casually with a smile. I agreed. "Host, you must keep this secret well. You marry him only to him. In the future, you still have to return to your own world. Otherwise, according to how much he likes you now, in case he goes crazy and plays imprisonment with you, What should we do? I was wearing a wedding dress and staring at myself in front of the mirror in the fitting room, looking distressed. Because Ian's had reached. Only marriage was left. Today, Aunt had something to do at the company and didn't come. So I came to try on the wedding dress by myself. My smile froze slightly. Absentmindedly said, "Don't worry. Cynthia, always do things with measure. In fact, the wedding dress, bouquet, and invitations were all reviewed by Ian one by one. Although he didn't show it on his face, he put his heart into every place. Late at night on this day, when I got up to drink water, I saw that the living room was still lit. Ian was lying on the coffee table, fast asleep. Under the coffee table, there were half-written wedding invitations scattered. The powerful handwriting was flamboyant. I don't know how long he had been writing. On his ring finger, he was wearing the aluminum malloy ring I gave him. Obviously, it's just a toy. Suddenly, my heart felt like being pricked by a needle. Ian had signed agreements to give me all his houses, cars, and all his possessions. He said that his health was not good. If one day he was gone, these things would be my backing system. If I leave, Willie and I? The system said. In fact, he is just a string of code. The host doesn't need to care too much. I took his hand. The warmth in the palm was so real. It was really hard to believe that he was just a cold string of code. Ian moved and slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were clear. Keon. After looking at me for so long, should you do something to me? I was stunned. You weren't asleep? No. I just wanted to see how long you could stare at me. Ian got up and pressed me on the sofa, kissing my hair, earlobes, palms, recklessly, dragging me into a ball of fire, repeatedly burning, turning into a soft liquid. I was in a daze. Hugging Ian, I asked, "Ian, do you love me?" Ian's movements were unexpectedly fierce. Keon, I want to possess you. As the days drew closer, my mood became more and more depressed. The system told me that in fact, I could choose. After a successful strategy, it would pop up a selection window for me. As long as I clicked no, I could stay in this world. This was a very difficult decision. Miss Wang, do you like this makeup? The words of the makeup artist pulled back my thoughts. Today is the pre-wedding makeup trial. An will arrive later. When I went outside to look in the mirror, I was suddenly blocked. I didn't expect you to get married again so soon. Henry stared at my face, somewhat greedily. I really should have seen your fickle nature earlier. The system was a little nervous. Host, stay away from him. Don't make any mistakes before getting married. Otherwise you won't be able to go back. I slowly took a few steps back. Henry narrowed his eyes. Keon, have you ever liked me? No. Henry wasn't in a hurry either. So you chased me for half a year and begged to marry me. What was it for? Because I am vain. Isn't it okay? Aren't you afraid that I will tell Ian these words? The system was rolling with joy. Big idiot. Does he really think that the 4 words vain can make he and break off the engagement? He underestimates Ian's for you too much. Right? Henry seemed to suddenly have some evidence. His laughter grew louder and louder. There was unstoppable contempt for me in his eyes. I will make you kneel down and beg me again. Cynthia, you will be my most obedient dog. The system, a man with. What credibility does what he says have? Henry's expression ended to be fierce. Since the last incident, he has gone crazy. I covered my mouth. Okay. Brother must recover his strength. Although I don't know if after being played with, he can still. Before this active volcano erupted, I quickly slipped away. On the day of the wedding, I got up very early. Looking at myself in the wedding dress in front of the mirror, I was a little dazed. Ian seemed to be sick these days. I haven't seen him Every time I called. I hung up after a few simple words. The system advised me, anyway. We are going to leave. As long as Ian doesn't break off the engagement, our task will be completed. Host. Today is a good day to go home. Be happy. The wedding dress prepared by Ian was covered with diamonds, shining dazzlingly. Before the wedding, the bride and groom cannot meet. Ian said with a smile on the phone, usually, your mouth is as sweet as honey. Now that you have caught me, it's not sweet anymore, right? I hummed softly. I like you the most. Ian patiently instructed. The venue is dark and the wedding dress is heavy. Watch your steps. No matter how impatient you are, don't fall. Let me take a good look. He didn't know that it would be the last time he saw me. Suddenly, I felt a little reluctant. Host. You have to think it through. Once a choice is made, it cannot be changed. I took a deep breath. I have no relatives in my original world. In fact, it seems, it won't be so bad to live in a different place. The system respected my decision. When the pop-up window appears later, just click no. Host. Be happy. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Under the dazzling flash, Ian was standing at the end of the road. At this moment, in my world, it seemed that only he was left. He looked over. In his silent eyes, there was a slight ripple. I was about to lift my skirt and walk towards him. Suddenly, the picture on the display screen was cut into an audio. In the video that should have been playing pre-wedding tidbits, the familiar voice of the system suddenly came. Host. Stay away from him. Don't make any mistakes before getting married. Otherwise you won't be able to go back. Big idiot. Does he really think that the 4 words vain to make he and break off the engagement? He underestimates scenes for you too much. Right? Anyway, we are going to leave. As long as he and doesn't break off the engagement, our task will be completed. Host. Today is a good day to go home. Be happy. My mind went blank. Why? Why is this happening? The system's voice was trembling. Host. I don't know what's going on either. Could there be a problem? Yvonne was sitting in the audience and said with a smile, I don't know what's going on. I seem to be able to hear your system talking all of a sudden. Cynthia. You are really sinister. Not only did you take Henry, but you also confused Ian. Henry stood up from the crowd and walked towards Ian on the stage. In front of many guests. He said, Brother, we have all been deceived by this woman. At the beginning, she didn't fight back, or scold back. She was tortured half to death by me, and still wanted to marry me. Before getting married, this woman found out that she had mistaken the target of. She directly turned around and went to find you. Now, she wants to go home relying on your. Henry looked fierce and his tone was excited. Brother, I don't mind sharing this woman with you. I sure fails the task can be played with however one wants. Right? The light above finally disappeared. I unsquatted in front of me. With his head down. Deep in his eyes like a stagnant pool was an almost indistinguishable tenderness. I was stunned. I unstroked my hair calmly. Just like countless late nights. He said, I have always known about her me. Henry and Yvonne's smiles suddenly froze on their faces. Ian turned his head and looked at the man causing trouble in front of him, showing a fierce and crazy smile. Henry, have you lost your mind? Dare to mess up my wedding? At this moment, all the blood in my body was completely frozen. I looked at Ian in disbelief, only to see several big men jump out from the corner and drag Henry, who was full of horror, towards the small dark room. Ian, you can't do this to me. Aha hh. Don't touch me. I beg you. Henry's screams were cut off outside the door. Yvonne was stunned. No. It's impossible. Ian. You must be crazy. You have been bewitched by the woman. You will die in her hands sooner or later. Ian gave her a cold glance. his eyes full of disgust. Yvonne fainted again. I stared at Ian in a daze. Ian knew I would leave today? I knew. I impatiently patted the dirt off my body, looking extremely calm. There should be a small problem with your system. My for you should be 100%. Don't worry about the problem of the time being cleared. Only then did I notice that Ian's lip color was a little purple. There wasn't much blood on his face. Ian, are you feeling unwell somewhere? I hurriedly got up and put my ear to his heart. Hearing the disorderly heartbeat, I was immediately panicked. I'll take you to the hospital. Ian knelt like this and bent down to hug me. Since I was born, there has been a voice telling me that my existence is to be by others. If it weren't for a system error, your target should have been me from the beginning. I looked up at Ian's face in disbelief, suddenly understanding where the indifferent and world-weary feeling on him had come from for a long time. He had already accepted the predestined fate, waiting to be and then be abandoned. What kind of malicious system is it that has destroyed all hope at the beginning of a person's birth? My voice was hoarse. Ian, what if I leave? What will be your ending? Ian lowered his head and said quietly, have a heart attack and die. You clearly know. Tears couldn't stop falling. My voice was choked. You clearly know this. Why do you still like me? As long as we don't get married. I can't leave and can stay with you all the time, but I have fallen in love with you. What should I do? Ian slowly rubbed my cheek and smiled. Such a vicious. He takes people's lives. His fingertips were starting to become abnormally cold. The heart was slowly stopping beating. Ian gently hugged me. Even breathing became heavy. I tightly held Ian's hand and panicked. It doesn't matter. I can choose. I have no relatives in that world. I won't go back. Suddenly a window popped up in front of me. Countdown to departure time. This time, there was no choice. I was panicked. System. Why don't I have an option? The system was also panicked. No. Who on earth forcibly modified my program? Host. The selection system is malfunctioning. You will be forcibly sent away. Ian smiled. There was never an option. Success in the task means leaving. This is the condition I negotiated with the chief judge. It turned out that he had made the choice for me invisibly. The strange world makes you feel insecure. Go back. Count down. 6. I frantically pinched Ian's arm and begged. Ian, don't do this. Hate me a little. I won't go. I won't go. Ian's face was almost transparent. He sighed. How can I hate you? You are my predestined fate and the love of my life. His voice became lower and lower. Kneeling on the steps and holding me. His hand slowly dropped. At the last moment, Ian said, so, always remember me. Darkness came. The solemn voice of the chief judge annihilated everything. Congratulations to the host. Successful departure from the world, welcome home. I was immersed in a blank darkness, struggling powerlessly, like a drowning person. At a certain moment, suddenly surfaced, waking up from a dream. I was sweating profusely. Keon, you had a dream again. My best friend Tina brought a basin of water and wiped my head. Finally, the fever has subsided. A few days ago, you had a high fever and started talking nonsense. I almost sent you to the hospital. It has been a month since I returned to the normal world. I was seriously ill and in a daze every day. From time to time, I dreamed of Ian standing alone at the bottom of a dark well and looking up at me. Every time I woke up from a dream, I would feel endless heartache and soreness. I covered my face. The cicadas outside the window were chirping one after another. The warm wind rushed in through the window. Tina stared at her phone and suddenly became excited. The school is going to hold an alumni association during the summer vacation. Summer vacation? I stared at her in a daze. Isn't it the beginning of the semester now? Tina put her hand on my forehead. You are sick and stupid. It's the middle of July. Middle of July. Obviously. I remember clearly that it was only Julyling, as he said he never used to lie. The harsh chirping of cicadas, the scorching wind, and the blinding sunlight all changed almost overnight. The classmates carrying suitcases and going home outside the window filled the streets. The originally sickly green plants suddenly became vibrant. Why is this happening? It's as if the timeline has suddenly become disordered. Tina said happily. It is said that a big shot will come this year. What's the name? Ian. I slowly turned my head and stared at her. Ian? Ah. She compared the list and muttered. It is said that his health has not been very good before, and he has been recuperating abroad. Recently, after recuperating well, he returned to China and is coming to attend the Alumni Association today. The number 1 on the graduate ranking. You should have seen him. Before she finished speaking, I was already getting dressed. Kian. Where are you going? Alumni Association. Hey. You are sick. Slow down. I rushed all the way to the school auditorium. As for what senior goo and what alumni association, I am sure that before I traveled to another world, there had never been such things. What a mess. My footsteps suddenly stopped. In the original outstanding graduate bulletin board, the number 1 Zhang Haoyan was inexplicably moved down one place. In the vacated position, there was an extra person. Ian. The familiar and deep features in the photo were smiling slightly like this and looking at me. That familiar voice suddenly came into my ears at this moment. Hello everyone. I am your senior. Ian. Above the spacious auditorium, that familiar figure was bathed in sunlight, lazily and casually leaning on the podium. The white shirt was translucent. The man was holding a microphone. There was an aluminum malware ring on his ring finger, gently knocking on the table. The sound came out through the microphone from the amplifier, making a clicking sound. At this moment, Ian gently raised his eyes and looked at me. The bright sunlight shone on his face, setting off his eyebrows and eyes into the most moving ink color. Everyone. Long time no see. On this day, I sat in the audience, listening to his speech and bursting into tears. He suddenly appeared in my world like this. Unreal and real. After the Alumni Association ended, he bid farewell to the audience and walked down from the side steps and came to me, lifted his hand and wiped the tears on my cheek. Knowing that I am charming, there is no need to stare at me like this. Ian. My voice was trembling. How could you? You want to ask how a string of code can appear in your world, right? As long as I want, I can do it. Feeling the strong heartbeat, I burst into tears like surviving a disaster. Your heart disease is cured. It's cured. He kissed my forehead and said softly, this time, no one will separate us. The breeze blew and the fragrance of flowers came. I fell into Ian's warm embrace like surviving a disaster. This city, which was still cold in early spring when I left, somehow, was already full of flowers everywhere. Epilogue. This is the 3rd year of my marriage to Ian. Tina's child's full moon banquet. Early in the morning, Ian pulled me out of bed. Sitting in the car, I softly complained while resting on his shoulder. I told you there was something today, but you still made it so late. Ian smiled. It's not when you are greedy for me. It is said that a short separation is better than a newlywed. Not long ago, I was busy organizing a technology exhibition for Party A and went to Beijing. Ian went abroad to talk about business. Yesterday morning, the two of us arrived home one after another. Without saying a few words, we rolled together. So when I, who was lacking sleep, saw Henry at the entrance of the full moon banquet, I thought I was having an illusion for a moment. Ian, I beg you. You can't do this to me. You said you would be with me forever. Henry was holding a man's trouser leg and begging bitterly. The man's eyes were cold and sarcastic. Henry, are you cheap? Don't you even have dignity? I don't want dignity. Henry's eyes were full of horror. As long as you love me. I only want you to love me. The man looked at his reaction with interest. Okay. Take off all your clothes and crawl outside. If you make me happy, I will love you. What are you looking at? Ian followed up from behind and put his arm around my waist. I pointed at Henry not far away. Why is he here too? Ian raised his eyebrows slightly. His tone was a little surprised. Yes. Why is he here too? Ian never told me how he came to this world. Probably due to a system disorder. Henry was accidentally brought here. I still wanted to say something else, but was pulled into the venue by Ian. I turned my head and looked at Henry, who was taking off his clothes crazily. I always felt this scene seemed familiar. Henry had tortured me like this before. Probably this is retribution. Tina's child's full moon banquet was very grand. I quickly forgot this little episode. When I went home at night, I had a little drink. Ian carried me in. I was happy in my heart and mumbling, "Brother, is the child cute?" Ian was pressed down on the sofa by me. His tie was half torn. His eyes were gentle and seductive. Kian wants to have a baby with me?" I cheered. "Great." Ian supported my waist and pinched my mouth, suppressing my cheer in my mouth. "You have so few wits. Be careful that I'll cheat you until you have nothing left." I struggled hard and shouted loudly, "Oh, you have many wits. How capable are you? Can you cheat me?" Ian raised his head, with a malicious smile on the corner of his mouth. Can't be cheated. Then why are you unbuttoning my collar?" I struggled out of his temptation and became angry from embarrassment. "Don't let me unbutton it. Let me unbutton it. Let me unbutton it." Ian chose a comfortable position. "Come on. Ravage me well tonight. Don't be polite." Ian has many wits. I admit it. As long as it's something he wants to do, there is nothing he can't accomplish. But his words are always gentle and soothing, making me completely infatuated. Until finally, Ian praised me for being very powerful. He was almost conquered by me. I was satisfied and was about to pass out. Suddenly, Ian slowly tied up my hands, got up from below, turned over and loomed over me. "The praise game is over. Are you satisfied with my service?" I was dazed and surprised. Still satisfied? What are you doing?" Ian, who had been sleepy before, tore off his mask and sat up, showing an unfinished smile. "Now, the eating game officially begins." It was late at night. The air conditioning temperature was set a bit low. Cynthia turned over and shrank her body into the quilt. Her sleeping posture was careful and wretched. At a glance, she was used to being bullied by a cunning man. Ian was wearing a bathrobe and sitting loosely on the sofa beside, silently looking at her. In his mind, a familiar voice was carefully reporting the news. "Master, Henry's body is not good. Should we increase the difficulty of the task?" If Cynthia could hear the system's voice at this time, she would definitely recognize it immediately. This is the stupid system that has accompanied her for 2 years. It actually has a name. Number. Hummed. As long as the person is still alive. Continue. Number was a little hesitant. "Master, should we erase number 1? Number is the system that was bound to Ian at the beginning. Since Ian was born, it has been brainwashing him non-stop, telling him to accept his fate and not resist." Ian pondered for a long time and said, "Continue to imprison." Number nodded and reluctantly glanced at Cynthia, who was still asleep. No one knows what happened in the system world on the night 3 years ago when Cynthia left the world. That night, Ian, a person who should have been offline, suddenly launched a coup with Number. The world where Ian was located completely collapsed. The system world ushered in a terrifying purge and extermination. On that day, the chief judge was enraged, ordered the whole system to erase Ian. But the chief judge didn't know that Ian had been preparing for this day for a whole year. Number still remembers that day was the most exciting and terrifying day since she started working. Ian, who died of heart disease and left his body, followed the network provided by Number and came to the chief judge, like a ghost crawling out of hell. stepping on the chief judge's head. He smiled gently. So you like to control my life so much? Let me have no parents. No emotions. Even be abandoned by my lover and die young. Is it fun? But what can I do? I don't want to accept it at all. Why don't you just die? Ian is indeed a lunatic. He ignored the chief judge's plea and cruelly smashed its head bit by bit. After that day, number 77 became the new chief judge. Ian became the person in charge of the chief judge. Since then, the perverted task has completely ended in various worlds. Seeing that number still hadn't left, Ian lifted his eyelids. Is there something? Number summoned up courage and asked. Master, Cynthia was not included in your original plan, right? If Ian's ultimate goal is to kill the chief judge and destroy the world, then having a heart attack on the day of the wedding was completely designed by Ian. Only by using the system rules to kill himself can he infiltrate the system world, find the chief judge, and complete the assassination. But Cynthia still thinks that Ian's heart attack is because she is about to leave. If Cynthia wasn't lucky enough to be forcibly sent out of that world, she should have died by now. Suddenly feeling unfair for Cynthia, spending the rest of her life being toyed with by such a deep-minded man, Ian narrowed his eyes and laughed. Are you accusing me of cheating her? Said, yes. Inside, she was already screaming wildly crazy. 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 I really stick up for my sister. Ian didn't say anything. Looking at the person on the bed, he sneered. If I cheated her, so be it. If it can make her remember me until she dies, why not do it? From the moment Cynthia threw herself into his arms for the first time, the gears of fate began to turn. His plan also began. First, subvert the number on Cynthia's body. At the same time, control Cynthia's, and let it increase slowly. Let the chief judge slowly relax his vigilance. At the moment when the task is completed, use the system rules to kill himself. Enter the system world, and complete the assassination. From beginning to end, Cynthia's plotline is just a tool he uses. Number, who is now the chief judge, cried like a wimp and left sadly. Cynthia turned over again and mumbled, Ian. Ian. Cold. Ian got up and walked over to hold her tightly. Said, it's not cold anymore. Sleep. Ian looked at the deep night, and remembered that on the night before his wedding with Cynthia, Number knelt in front of him and begged wildly. Ian. Don't go crazy. Forcibly sending away the will make both of us die. She is willing to stay for you. Then just stay. Anyway, it's just a part of your plan. Use her. Okay? Once forcibly sent away, the system crashes and both you and I will die. There is no need to take risks. Right? You are about to succeed. Isn't this what you've been longing for? Forcibly sending away Cynthia had to happen simultaneously with Ian's death. Once there was a problem and the system crashed, Ian would be completely annihilated and never come back. He has always been deep-minded and selfish and never does such risky things. His only goal is to kill the chief judge and gain freedom. However, he did it. He forced Number to forcibly erase Cynthia's selection button. At the moment of holding Cynthia on the stage, Ian was very clear. An accident had occurred in his life. If he succeeded this time, he would go to Cynthia's world and pester her for a lifetime and never let go. If he failed, Cynthia would never forget him in this lifetime. No matter what, he wouldn't lose. Cynthia didn't sleep well tonight. She woke up vaguely in the middle of the night, seeing Ian staring at her. She mumbled and asked, "What are you looking at?" Ian propped his head, looking at an accident. Accident. Cynthia didn't understand and mumbled a few words with a smile. Crazy. Ian slowly pinched Cynthia's neck. The rough fingertips brushed against her delicate skin. In fact, at that time, as long as he exerted a little force, Cynthia would completely disappear from that world. Why didn't he do it in the end? Ian couldn't remember. Probably it was because when he saw her crying and standing in the crowd, Even if she exhausted her survival time, she still wanted those who bullied her to pay the price. She had also been driven crazy by the system. She should be able to understand him, right? From that day on, Ian began to deliberately open up his heart and show her a little secret. A little is enough. Half true and half false. Just like a patient hunter, leading the prey into his encirclement step by step. Even Cynthia falling in love with him was calculated. Brother, do you love me? Cynthia seemed to be asleep and mumbled nonsense while pestering him. Ian looked down at her face. Since he was born, he has not been allowed to have emotions. So he doesn't know what love is. Ian thought for a while and said, I want to possess you. Kion. Is possession love? Cynthia was again confused by his male charm and moved her mouth closer. Come here. I'll tell you. Ian leaned over and blocked her mouth, turning the low murmurs into a dense kiss. Ian's heart beat faster. His heart was warm, as if something had flowed out, making him give up slaughter and submit to tenderness. Ian understood that he was a lunatic living in the darkness. Once he caught the light, for the rest of his life, he would never let go.